Cloud9 Vaping, sponsors of Dave's Tackle Box.
Hello, good evening. Welcome to Dave's Tackle Box on Sunday the 13th of January 2013. Hope everybody's had a good weekend. I've had a bit of a lazy week myself. On my extended Christmas holiday. It's been rather good. Now, on tonight's show, there was, just as we were sort of connecting up there, somebody was asking whether this camera actually works or whether it's just for show. So in a few minutes, I've got a little bit of VT that I took with that camera to prove that it actually does work. And it does, rather nicely, I think. I'm going to be looking at a couple of things that arrived in the post and giving you a little bit of update on a couple of things that have been of interest to me in the past week or two. And then a little later in the show, I'm going to be joined by Dave Dorn and Tim Boniface. I never pronounce that properly, do I? You know, RY4 Tim. You know Tim. And we're going to be talking a little bit about recent developments with the EU Tobacco Products Directive, the proposed revisions that are going through the EU Parliament around about now. So, so there's quite a lot to fit in. I said I wanted to start just by bringing you up to date on a couple of things. We've discussed on VTTV, and it's been a topic of discussion on the UK Vapors Forum quite recently about people who are new to vaping and whether they prefer the sort of cigar-like format or whether... I got into a sort of fairly heated debate on UKV about advising newbies, and that's not a very sort of ingenuous term, really, is it? But the term newbies, let's use it because I don't have a better word. People who are wanting to buy their first e-cig, and some of the advice that they're given must go woof straight over their heads half the time, I reckon. And I've always been an advocate of keeping it simple. And there was a debate going on about whether cigar-likes have got their place and all the rest of it, particularly for new vapors, to find their feet before they start thinking about, okay, now I need a bigger battery, or I need more throat hit, or I want a bigger choice of flavour. And you know, I had something happen just over the Christmas period, which was... I wouldn't say it was an eye-opener, but it doesn't make the debate conclusive in any way at all. But just to show that there is another point of view out there. You may recall that I won a couple of prizes, actually, in Gary Dibley's Children in Need raffle. That was a couple of months back now. And included in there were a couple of Ego-type starter kits. I'm not sure which vendors donated them. If I just flick to this camera, and you can see what you got. They were complete kits, so they had the charger, one battery in each, and these sort of clearomizer type things, okay, these Stardust C4s, whatever they are, okay, they weren't labelled, but they were packaged up nicely, and they're perfectly good, functional little e-cigs. No wrong with those. So I was at a dinner party. That sounds a bit posher than it actually was, but we went round to see some friends. I think it was the day after Boxing Day, and friends of my missus, both smokers, had both expressed an interest in these things because I knew I used them. So I thought, here you go, a Christmas present. Have a kit each. I took a selection of juice for them to try, and we left sort of late that night, and I left them with them, and came home. Now, on New Year's Eve, we had those same people, the couples that we were talking about, that I was talking about, came to our house for a New Year's Eve party, and they brought them back. Comments were, tastes horrible, looks ridiculous, haven't you got one that looks like a cigarette? Which I didn't, so they're back to cigarettes for the time being. So just, it kind of reinforces the point that I was making on the forum a little bit. Like I say, it's not conclusive because everybody's different, aren't they? But that scared people to death. These particular people anyway, and I'm sure they spoke to each other. So I think it was probably a sort of considered and discussed opinion I got back, but I just thought I'd mention that. Anyway, on to myself. I bowed to the pressure. This thing is the Inokin iTaste MVP. Sav has been using one. In fact, it's been like permanently welded to her every time I've seen her on VTTV lately. Andy Sutton did a review of one recently, and just as an aside, isn't it good to see Andy doing reviews again? He did another one today of the Kanga T3 cartomizer as well. I think that went up yesterday, which is up on YouTube. Great to see you doing reviews again, Andy. It's nice to have you back amongst us. So well done on that. But this thing, it appealed to me, and I saw a couple of reviews when they first came out. Just for those that don't know, it comes in a starter kit. It's a box mod, and it's got it's variable voltage. That's a puff counter you saw flickering there, and this camera's not ideal. So I've had 316 puffs since I started it, which is, not particularly interesting. But you can see it's variable voltage. It works as a power bank. It's got like a 2,600 milliamp hour battery rating, which seems to be pretty valid. I haven't charged this up since yesterday morning, and I've been using it quite a lot. It comes with these clearomizers, the dual coil ones. What do they call them? iClear clearomizers. They're dual coiled clearomizers, and they ain't bad. Now, I'm not going to do a full review on this just at the moment. But I will do in the coming weeks. My initial impressions, it arrived 3 days ago, I think, and I've hardly put it down, and my initial impressions are it's rather good, and that from somebody who doesn't really like box mods. This is definitely a box. It's not a bad piece of kit, so you'll be seeing more of this. I'm gonna try and use it in some sort of real world practical situations and report back on how well it performs for me. But just using it now as an e-cig, and it's absolutely fine. Also this week, I got a couple of other bits and bobs sent to me by the Scott, aka Graham, aka Siam Mods. And I just, again, I'm not going to go into too detailed a review here, but I just wanted to show you these because they're worth a quick look. Some new products he's got out. First is this thing, and this is an atomizer stand. So basically what it is, it's quite a weighty piece of metal with a 510 thread in there, and they come in different patterns. So this one's got like a tiered pattern, this one's got like a an almost Provari punched type design. You get these little sticky pads, so you can stick them to your desk if you want to stop them sliding around. And the idea with these is that you can, because they've got this 510 thread here, let's put that somewhere central, you can screw in your tank. It could be a tank. I'm going to use it probably when I'm rebuilding rebuildable atomizers. So basically it gives you a firm base while you're re-wicking. And I think that is a wonderful idea. I think you can get them already at Alba Vapors. I'm not sure if they'll crop up at the other usual Siam Mods outlets in due course. But I think that's a wonderful idea. Because I've been using also, funnily enough, the thing I've been using most often for that up until now was a Siam Mods Carto Punch. Because you can stand it in there as well. But obviously it doesn't grip it like this does. And with that stuck down, it gives you quite a good base to work on. So let's just shove that to one side over there or something for now. He also sent along for me to have a look at some new drip tips he's done. And that one's lovely, I think. That's a 510, obviously, drip tip with quite a wide mouth. Some of these Siam Mods tips, I've got loads of them now. And he does seem to come up with some lovely designs. And there's a Dorn version of that as well, which I shall be sending on to Dave Dorn, because he was after a Dorn tip. They're nice. But the other thing he started doing are these. Now, I had that clearomizer here on the MVP. Now, these were sent to me, a note was sent to me in advance of these arriving, saying they're like CE4 type mouthpieces. But just to give you an idea, this is the iClear cartomizer. If I take that off, it's a bit gooey because I've not long filled it up. But you've got these nice patterned metal tips that fit onto, for example, the iClear. How cool's that? Like I say, it does have some very sort of innovative ideas, does Graham. And thank you for sending those along. I've got a funny feeling they might show up in some reviews of other stuff and everything in the coming weeks. Like I say, I'm sending a lot of this gear along to Dave Dorn as well. So I thought you might like to see them. Nice. Anyway, right, sorry, we need to move along because I'm running late already. So, first article, we're late. Sounds like me. This camera, it does do stuff. This video, if you're a regular watcher of VTTV and you watched Vapor Scene with Mark Green on Tuesday, you've already seen this, so apologies for that. But it actually serves as quite a nice little lead-in to the discussion I'm going to be having with Dave and Tim shortly. This was put together for Mark at Mark's request. It was sort of commissioned for the Vapor Scene programme, and was intended to be a sort of story of my vaping journey, my vaping experience to date. But as I say, as it panned out, it serves as quite a useful lead into our next feature tonight. So enjoy this. I bought my first electronic cigarette on the 4th of September 2010. Unlike a lot of people, I bought mine more out of curiosity rather than through some desire to quit smoking. I know now, by talking to people on forums and at vape meets, that a lot of people tried various NRT treatments and various methods to quit smoking, and had very little success with that, and now look at electronic cigarettes as something that helped them quit. In my case though, the deciding factor, the reason that I actually parted with my 25 quid that day at the little barrow in the shopping mall, was the convenience of this thing. It was a like thing, like most people start with. I tried it, it seemed okay, and I remember as I walked away thinking that maybe I'd smoke a few less cigarettes. It wasn't a huge concern of mine at the time, but the main reason I got it was it would be a lot more practical. I work as an IT consultant, which involves working on client sites quite a lot of the time, and sometimes just nipping out for a cigarette can be a bit awkward. So I figured this could be useful for that, and it was, and it'd be better in the car. So I thought, what the hell, I'll give it a go. After a couple of weeks or so of using this little cig-alike, I became aware of two things. First one was that the kit wasn't really hacking it for me. I needed something with a longer battery life and something that gave me a little bit of a better hit. But I also started to notice that I was feeling a lot more energetic. I'm a keen walker, and I started to find that I could walk for longer. I was out of breath a lot less often, and I was enjoying the walking a lot more than I did. You couple that with the fact that I didn't feel like a social outcast half the time when I wanted to spark up a cigarette, and the lack of smoke smell and the litter caused when you're walking, disposing of a knob end is always a bit of a dilemma, and just my general quality of life was a lot better. I got the Reaver kit, and I really haven't looked back since. Well, although vaping has certainly increased my lung capacity and initially made me a lot fitter than I was when I smoked, I think 19 months of a beer and schnitzel diet in Munich have undone a lot of that, because it's been quite difficult, quite hard work, especially lugging this camera. So I'm just having a little rest and a vape. I stopped here once a couple of years ago and filmed a review on a wall just over there with a GGTB, if I remember rightly, and it's a nice spot. I shall be coming here more often now I'm back in the UK. Many of the people I speak to these days who've successfully made the switch from smoking cigarettes to using electronic cigarettes or vaping tend to want to share that experience with people, and I was no exception. Very quickly after I started vaping, I set up the Happy Vapor blog, which is still running today, although it doesn't get as much attention as it probably deserves. In many ways, it was at that point that really was the start of my vaping journey, to be honest. Obviously now I'm a moderator of the UK Vapors Forum. I'm quite active with vape meets and what have you. I like to get together with people and swap stories and try out hardware and e-liquid and what have you. I've always been a gadget freak, so big mods and Genesis hybrids and such, they do have a certain draw for me, and I do probably have far too many of them. But again, I know lots of people who are exactly the same in their approach to this that I am. But overall, I do this because I enjoy it. It really genuinely has improved my quality of life. Now, if you're a smoker listening to this and you're thinking about trying electronic cigarettes, then obviously I would strongly recommend that you give them a try. But bear one thing in mind, it really isn't it's not the same as quitting smoking. I still have an addiction to nicotine. I sometimes feel a little bit uncomfortable admitting that, but it's true. But that's not a problem. That's not a problem. I get the benefits of not smoking and the benefits of enjoying nicotine. For me, it just works. In fact, I would say that vaping is better than smoking. It's not just a good substitute, it's better. There's such a range of flavours of juice that can be tried, so many different ways of controlling the experience of actually using an electronic cigarette, that, to be honest with you, smoking is just inferior by comparison. So here we are at the beginning of 2013. It's the 7th of January as I record this, and on my Vapor Trails TV show last night we were discussing the EU Tobacco Products Directive, the revision that was published on the 19th of December last year, which, if it goes through unchallenged and unamended, will amount to a ban on vaping as we know it. And for all the reasons that I've spoken about in this little film, I cannot for the life of me understand how anybody could think that that's a sensible thing to do. So the next part of my vaping journey is quite clear. I'm going to be involved in campaigning and spreading the word and making my resistance and my feelings known about this. Even if we get this thing kicked away, which is, let's be honest, that's not a foregone conclusion. We've still got the MHRA in the UK to report back in May, and 2013 promises to be quite a challenging year for those of us who enjoy electronic cigarettes as I do. But I won't be disheartened, and I shall fight the good fight. But that brings you pretty much up to date with my vaping journey. So thank you for watching. And good evening, eventually. Took a little while to get things wound up and ready to go then, didn't it? But I'm here now, so welcome to Dave's Tackle Box on Sunday.
So there we go, we're back in the room and not long to go now. So yeah, I was talking to my son and he's watching me make things before.
And a very good evening to you. It is Tuesday the 20th of November 2012 and you are tuned into BBC
At Thereapos TV tells tonight being Wednesday night, it is time for the one and only chat show programme called VT Talk.
Tis the Haze Hour. Again, Keith was just saying if it wasn't for the titles, he wouldn't come and do the show. He loves them so much, don't you?
Cloud9 Vaping, sponsors of Dave's Tackle Box.
And welcome back to Dave's Tackle Box. And as you can see, over my right shoulder, I've got Tim Boniface.
Close.
Boniface.
Yep.
Yeah.
Boniface.
I always think Bonaparte, you know, and then
Boniface.
I only ever remember halfway through
Boniface,
the word.
that's the one, yeah.
And
Boniface.
at least his name's easier to pronounce. Dorn.
Dorn.
That's him. Thank you for joining me, guys. I announced at the top of the show there what the main subject of debate is going to be tonight. And I don't think it's going to be a debate, actually. I think it's going to be three guys who know what they're talking about. Maybe, well, two guys that know what they're talking about, and me. But we are here again to continue our discussion, really, because anybody that watches VTTV regularly will know that this has been a common topic of discussion throughout the week. In fact, since before Christmas. The EU Tobacco Products Directive, the proposed revisions that were announced on the 19th of December 2012, which will be presented to the European Parliament and Council for its first reading. If you're American and watching this is like the first reading of the bill. Potentially, it could on that date be passed and go through as law. That's unlikely. People will debate things. There will be amendments made. But ultimately, something out of this is going to become law in the EU. Not optional. It's going to be the law. History tells us that member countries will more than likely adopt it because it's the law. We've discussed what it actually means, especially to users of electronic cigarettes. We're going to discuss that in a little bit more detail tonight. We've got Tim here, who is obviously, he works in an e-cig shop. He's a retailer. He's got a vested interest in this as a consumer and also his livelihood. Dave, as we know, has been you're probably the most clued up person on the planet on all the ins and outs of this. I get the impression you certainly know more about the subject than those clowns at the EU, Dave.
Thank you for that.
I know that's not much of a compliment, but yeah.
I'll take it as one.
So,
I've spent a hell of a lot of time researching it, reading it, talking to everybody that I need to talk to, and it's ongoing. I mean, there's a lot still to cover yet.
There is. I've spent the last week trying to get up to speed and with all the different angles on this. One thing I have to do, Dave, is congratulate you on the VT Talk show last Wednesday. If anybody hasn't watched that, it's on YouTube, it's on Blip TV, it's available as a podcast. You can find it in the V-Player section of the vaportrails.tv website. What was the date on Wednesday?
9th.
The 9th. Look for the episode of VT Talk that went out on Wednesday, the 9th of January 2013. and you will find basically a full programme dedicated to a guest, a guy called Clive Bates, who is a former director of ASH, well, it's basically an anti-smoking charity. That's how we've always considered ASH to be. He's very clued up guy, and he had some very good ideas on what you should be doing to make your displeasure at this proposal known. And we may very well refer to comments that Clive made as we go through this. But if I can, I just want to kind of get a little bit of a contrast here. If I could ask you first, Dave, as a consumer, okay, given the way you use electronic cigarettes, what is the likely outcome of this proposal being passed as it is? How will it affect what you use and what you do day to day?
Well, if it's passed as it is,
yeah,
as it stands, I think I'll have wind of it, that it's going to get through as it stands, and then there'll be one or two vendors in the UK will be getting orders for 10 kilograms of 45 milligram juice, and they'll be shoved in the freezer, and there'll be a 5 kilogram of 24 milligram juice in probably an RY high five for my darling wife. If it goes through as is, that is going to be the only option if I want to carry on using the small array of e-cigs which I have at the front of my desk at the moment. Otherwise, if it got really bad and the Gestapo came and took everything away, I'd be up the corner shop and buying fags. It's that simple.
It is, and just to stress the point, the reason for this is that the proposal effectively bans the sale of anything stronger than 4 milligram per milliliter juice unless it's got a marketing authorization. So, in other words, unless it's a medicine.
And more to the point, the kind of stuff I like to use is not going to get a marketing authorization straight off the belt.
Yes, let's come back to that point. Because I'm not sure that everybody has got that point. I'm just checking that the video is streaming out okay, because I'm getting some funny sort of things happening here. But I believe
delicious here, Dave.
It's what? Sorry.
It's delicious here.
Excellent. That's the way I like it to be. I shall ignore what Wirecast is telling me then, because it's jerky as hell on my screen. Okay, right, Tim. That's the point from a consumer's point of view. This 4 milligram strength proposal basically means that Dave is going to stock up, and let's face it, we all are, on stuff over that limit before it comes to pass. That's the likelihood. Now you've got a much more vested interest in this than us, because you make your living out of selling this stuff. I mean, let me put it to you this way, okay? When you're sitting in your shop, in the retail outlet in, where is it?
Hailsham.
Hailsham. I always forget the name of that. You're sitting there in Hailsham. If you were sat there now, imagine looking round on the shelves, how much of the stuff that's on those shelves would still be legal to sell if this gets passed?
Well, I would be looking straight from my desk across to where I keep a great big rack of bottles of juice. They wouldn't be there anymore. That would be the first thing. The hardware would still be good to go, but 40% of the business is already gone, from my point of view. And I know for a lot of other vendors it's more than that. But
I believe so.
So if the hardware is going to be compatible with the new style, whatever it comes in, cartomizer or whatever, then the hardware's still good to go. But what's the likelihood of that? It's going to be what Dave's holding up at the moment. It's going to be a strange little thing that looks like a cigarette.
Yeah, and this is the thing. You made a comment, just for those that don't know, the VTTV team, including Tim there, we have like an ongoing, never-ending Skype conversation where we use the chat feature in Skype. And that is the breeding ground for a lot of ideas for shows and things like that. It's where we all sort of knock heads and swap notes. And Tim made a comment in our Skype chat earlier this week, I won't use the exact words that you used, Tim, because
Yeah.
we're not quite a family show, but but people will be able to work out. He said every time he mentions this proposal to people who walk into his shop, their reaction is, so what? That's not the exact words he used.
Yeah.
What the chuff has this got to do with me? It seems to me that people don't understand the implication of what's coming up. A lot of people seem to think it'll all blow over. Explain that to me a bit, Tim.
Well, I mean, I've been a terrible bore this week with people since all this started kicking off. I've actually almost forced people to stay in the shop and talk to me, and I've just come out with it and told them all about what's going on, and quite literally, as we said, it was what got to do with me was the answer generally. So I then went on to explain to them that you're doing this, you're now vaping. So what are you going to do if this doesn't, if you can't go and do this anymore? 9 out of 10 people had the same answer as Dave. They'd be up the corner shop straight away buying some cigarettes, which is fair enough. But I then explained to them that they can make a difference. So hence the bit we're going to be talking about later, obviously the MEPs, that sort of stuff. And I'm still getting quite blank looks from people. And I mean, even one person just said, well, I'll carry on using my e-cig and stick a couple of patches on my arm. And one woman actually does do this now with 18 milligram juice. She's got patches on her arms as well. She's hardcore, this woman.
But you've got no 45 inch.
No, I've only got 36. That's that's the highest I've got.
I thought that was bad.
Yeah. Patch on each arm, 18 milligram, flat out all day. 10 mils every 2 days, so 5 meals a day. She's
Plus
doing.
a patch on each arm.
I have no idea. I'm assuming they're like 4 milligram or something, aren't they, or something like that?
I guess so, yeah.
Yeah,
Because there's a suggestion that might be where this 4 milligram is rooted, this limit that they've picked out for e-liquid.
It's the pharmaceutical thing, isn't it? And they also want to just keep it so it's not quite as low as your average tomato and potato.
Exactly. I mean, let's be clear that what this legislation would do is essentially brand he's reaching for a bottle. Any bottle will do. This bottle will do of juice as a medicine, and they're saying, but if it's below a certain strength, then you can get that medicine without an MA and without a prescription. Yeah, exactly. I've got similar sized containers over there. That you just wouldn't be able to buy that. That's the thing. I mean, Dave. I mean, I've noticed. Most people, certainly the people who are watching this show live in chat, understand the point, and we're kind of preaching to the converted in a sense there. But it does seem that there's a percentage of people who refuse to accept, perhaps because it's so ridiculous as an idea, they seem to refuse to accept that the stuff is going to get banned. I mean, what are you finding?
Well, yes, I mean, I'm seeing all kinds of different attitudes on various different forums, some of which scare the living daylights out of me. There are all sorts of coping strategies, if you like. There are those that are saying, well, I've got time. If I drop 2 milligrams a month, I'll be down to 4 milligrams by the end of the year. I'm thinking, okay, EU's won.
Yeah.
And a lot of scenarios like that where the EU wins. A lot of people saying, well, I'll just pack in all together. I'll be nicotine abstinent. So the EU's won. I see a lot of people that basically are just saying, well, it's government, they're going to win, so we're not even going to fight. And the fact of the matter is, it's a fight that we can win, but we can only win if everybody fights. It really is a matter of numbers.
This is a classic case of you're voting this. Okay, we can't vote at the EU Parliament, but we can influence our representatives. Okay, there's a point I'm going to make when we get to it. But at the moment, this is not a party political issue. You can influence it. It does seem that individual MPs and MEPs in different constituencies have varying views. That means you can influence it. But we're going to make that point after the break, I think. But I mean, just to summarise and draw a line under that little section, if you like, if this goes through as a consumer, you're screwed, unless you can live on 4 milligram juice and you're happy to buy it in a capsule or some kind of delivery device that will only give you 0.5 ml at a time.
Yeah.
There's been a question just posed in chat, Dave. I don't know whether you've seen it. But Veterans asked if you import juice, will the coppers arrest you and take you away as a drug addict dealer? And it might seem a little bit daft.
It depends, doesn't it? It depends whether they enforce it, how much they enforce it. That remains to be seen, frankly. I mean, they're not going for an out-and-out banning order in the first instance, as far as we can tell. But if this looks like it's going to go through after the first reading, which is on the 25th of February in Brussels, our very own beloved MHRA are due to report their take on this in May, but we expect that to be delayed slightly, did we? But within a few months they're going to report, put it that way.
Yes.
And if they decide, actually, we think this is going to go through, we like what it says, we're going to enforce a banning order, then the stuff, it'll be smuggling if you bring it in. It's that simple.
Well, if that's what they decide in the EU, then if you bring it in across the EU borders, you'll be smuggling it.
Absolutely
it's not just UK, it's the whole of Europe. And if the EU Parliament makes a decision that this is what's going to happen, that anything over 4 milligrams just isn't allowed without the appropriate licensing, then there are all kinds of measures that they can take to enforce it and make a lot of it criminal offences.
Exactly. And I just one other point that I picked up on as well, and that's this business about an MA. There's an argument to say, well, okay, it's going to cost the manufacturers or the vendors some money if it needs an MA. Don't think that your choice of strengths of, I don't know, he looks around RY4 or RY High 5 or Kentucky Vanilla Blend, he's going to get an MA, because I don't know anybody that's going to actually pour money into that. I think you'll find that the only people who can finance getting an MA in this country are the ones backed by the big tobacco or pharma companies. So consider yourself lucky if you get a choice of tobacco and menthol in more than a couple of different strengths. That's my take on it.
I've got one thing to add, really. With going back to what we were talking about with the people I see in the week. A lot of them, their answer was, well, by the time all this happens, I would have quit. So there's a lot of that going on still as well, because they think that they're going to just put the e-cig down after a few months, a year, whatever, and just use it to ease them off the cigarettes. So there's still a lot of the quit feeling going around with the general public.
I'm sure that's right. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to avoid getting into a debate on that during this show, because that's a show in its own
That's
right,
a whole show,
isn't
yeah.
it? You know, I completely agree. What I will say is I don't want to quit, and I don't want to be forced to. Gentlemen, it's time to end part 2. See you in 2 minutes.
Cloud9 Vaping, sponsors of Dave's Tap Box.
The GG, because you want one.
iVapour and iVapour Elixir, based in Yorkshire, for your e-cig needs. That's iVapour.co.uk and iVapour-elixir.co.uk. iVapour and iVapour-elixir.co.uk, proud sponsors of VapourTrails.tv.
If you can't watch our shows live, try some of these. Go to YouTube at youtube.com/user/vaportrailstv and you can subscribe there. All of our shows are uploaded as soon as possible after they've gone out live. Enjoy watching it on YouTube. Lots of people do. Alternatively, go to Google and type in podcast vaportrails.tv and iTunes. Click on the link and that will take you to a page that shows you the Vapor Trails TV podcast. View it in iTunes, and when you get to iTunes, don't forget to click on subscribe free, and each of the shows will be downloaded to your hard drive as soon as they come out. Or you can use video on demand. Go to www.vaportrails.tv, click on vPlayer, pick the show you want to watch, in this case it's the Haze Hour, and then you can pick the episode that you want to watch from every one that we've ever done. They're all there. Under normal circumstances, you'll watch it at 360p, which means everybody can see it. It'll go full screen. You can do whatever you want with it. So there you go, 3 ways that you can watch vaportrails.tv. Subscribe and enjoy. Thanks.
Cloud9 Vaping, sponsors of Dave's Tobacco Box.
And welcome back. It's part 3. Sometimes the best part, sometimes not so much, but tonight it's going to be the best part, I think. I was just with the 3 of us actually were just watching some of the commenting chats there as during that break, and inevitably the conversation has turned to the whole business of quitting. That we've just agreed amongst ourselves just during that break. We'll do this as a subject, but not in tonight's show, because that. More important than that, I think, tonight is to focus on what we can do about it. Now, I made the point just before the break that, as far as I can tell, based on people have been talking to their MPs and MEPs, and the feedback we're getting, there are a couple of sort of template responses coming back from certain MEPs. But as far as we can tell at the moment, it doesn't seem to. There's no party line on this. It does seem that if you can persuade your MEP on how they should vote when they get the chance, you may have some influence. We had Clive Bates, as I mentioned, on VT Talk. We've also had Professor Jerry Stimson on VT Talk, and basically they're totally aligned on what we should be doing here, aren't they, Dave?
Absolutely, yes. There's no argument amongst those in the know, shall we say. The course of action is quite clear, and it just needs everybody to do it, as many people as is humanly possible, in as many ways as is humanly possible. But thing to remember is time is actually of the essence.
Absolutely it is. What the consensus seems to be that the most effective thing that you can do is go and see as many of your Parliament, UK Parliament and European Parliament representatives as you can, your MP and your MEPs. Now, I'm going to throw this open to the peer review in a minute to see if your experiences have been different to mine. I found that my MP was very efficient. It took a couple of days for him to reply, but he came back to me and he said, here's a choice of dates where I can go and see him when he's running a clinic. It's literally 10 minutes up the road, and I live in a rural constituency. He travels around to make sure people can get to him easily, and it just so happens that the earliest date was the nearest venue for me. Not that it matters, I'd have driven wherever I need, but I'm getting my 15 minutes of fame with him on the 8th of February, and I'm going to take along some devices, and I'm going to tell him all about my story. I'm not going to try and blind him with facts and science that I don't fully understand, and where I might get my numbers muddled and all the rest of it. I'm going to go along and I'm going to say, look, this is what these things have done for me. This is what will happen if this goes through. This is how it will affect me. And by the way, do you even know what the hell these things are and how people use them? So I'm going to go armed with a few web links. I've sent him an email saying if you want to get one of your researchers or assistants to research this, let me know. I'll send you some links and tell you what I want to talk about and the angle I'm coming from, so we can make that 15 minutes as productive as possible. I'm finding, however, that my MEPs are less good at answering. And that's certainly there's a couple of threads going on UK Vapors. That seems to be the case. The MEPs seem to be a bit slower at replying, and I don't think I've heard of anybody yet who's actually managed to get to sit down face to face with one.
It's a different setup from UK MPs.
It seems to be, because a UK MP has to give you an opportunity, don't they? They have to run a clinic. You have a right to visit them.
Yes.
But I'm not sure if that's the case with MEPs, because
it's not quite the case, no. But you can seek an audience, if you like, a meeting, and if they are so inclined, they will meet with you if they think that the information that you have or the opinion that you have is one that they need to take account of.
Exactly.
The easy answer is bombard. Don't go crackers. Don't be abusive or anything like that. But just keep sending reminders. I sent you an email on the such and such.
Exactly.
I have not yet received a reply. My email might be faulty. Could you just tell me again what you said in your reply?
Absolutely. And when you make that initial approach to them, it's writetothem.com, isn't it? Yep. You can on there you key in your postcode. They tell you who your MP and your MEPs are. Tell your story. Don't start sounding like some backbench rebel politician. Tell them your story, how it's going to impact you. Tim, we haven't asked you to say anything for a while. Speak.
No.
Speak.
Well, I've certainly started doing that. I've used that site to contact my MEPs. I've had an email back to acknowledge my email from one of them. The other 5, I think it is, haven't come back to me yet. My local MP, he holds his clinics down in Eastbourne. I've contacted them, and I'm awaiting an appointment to go down and see them. My colleague at one of the other stores is going to see his MP as well, because Eastbourne and the Wilden area have got different MPs. So there's 2 of us going armed with our story, with our weapons of choice on the day, to explain it all. So we're, with high hopes, and just hope it all works out.
I guess you've got to you've got a different angle on this, just as you do on this show, I guess.
Yeah.
As a retailer, somebody who's making a living from this, they can't ignore that. Because I mean, how dramatic am I being? Are we going to see the end of the industry?
Well, it could possibly do that, because if there's nothing we can sell in the shops, then there's going to be no shops. And likewise, if the vendors, and I know a lot of vendors rely upon juice sales for perhaps 90% of their turnover, if that was to happen to them, the industry would disappear as we know it.
Because, I mean, ultimately you're faced with selling a product that's so weak nobody would want to use it.
Yeah.
Or somehow getting your hands on a licensed product, which I can't see the big boys parting with, particularly if you're going to sell it online and undercut them. No,
that wouldn't happen. I mean, it's good they're going to keep that to themselves, and we're just not going to get a look in there at all. So it will end up being the prescription product that is the stronger one.
Well, it's funny you should mention that. I'm aware of one. Yeah. I think it's a Liberal Democrat MP who is sending a sort of standard response saying it's okay. You'll be able to get it on prescription, don't worry.
I just love those 90 milliamp batteries that we're going to all have.
The thing about it is that even if we're not successful, if it goes through as is, there will be nothing on the market the moment the legislation is enacted in member countries, because the EU will insist that everything is taken straight off the shelves. There's no 21 days about this. The minute it's enacted, it's law, that's it. It's just got to be stopped from sale, unless something's done to prevent that, and maybe get a 7-year phase in or whatever it happens to be. So you could quite easily have customs and excise or trading standards or whoever come down to any shop and go 36, 24, 18, 11, everything but, oh, you've got some 2. You can keep the 2, the rest gone. Actually, no, you can't keep the 2 because that's in 5ml bottles, so there's actually 10 milligrams in that. That's not allowed, gone as well. There's nothing there to get.
No.
There's nothing to buy. It's that simple.
So I'm not being over dramatic.
No, far from it. I mean, this was the point that Clive made on Wednesday, and it got a little bit covered up, I suppose. That this is not. It's not like what they did with the herbal products directive that came out, which is. I know a lot of people wondered why on VT Talk we had Mandy Perpetua from e-cig.
I recall it well, yeah.
On the show, and we were talking about what had happened with herbal products to give an example of what could happen in the EU if they decided to go down the route. And a lot of people went, what was that all about? Nah, they're not going to do that. Poo-poo, it's not going to happen. And lo and behold, here we are, and they have.
It's happening.
And more to the point, there is nothing in that proposed revision to the directive that gives any leeway for time. There's no phasing in, there's no nothing, it's just woof, down. Yeah. Shutters down, close up, finished, end of. That's the way the EU, or at least Darley's crowd, and now Borg's crowd, want to see it occurring. That's what we're looking at doing. And if, honestly, if people sit on their backsides and do nothing, that's what they're going to get. Nothing. There'll be nothing you can use. It'll be.
It really is that simple, isn't it? It really is that simple.
Yes, and I honestly believe a lot of people don't believe that. A lot of people think, oh, they wouldn't do that because it makes no sense. This has got nothing to do with sense and everything to do with ideology and people who have a down on nicotine and can't separate nicotine from smoking lit tobacco. We need...
Absolutely. And that's my take on it as well, Dave. I think the idea is so patently ridiculous that people think it can't happen. The other thing that I see as well is there's a lot of people seem to think that there might be some corruption or something like that behind that. I don't subscribe to that myself. I honestly think these idiots think that this is in our best interest. The whole nanny state argument is as valid here as it ever is. But, it's irrelevant. One more point, because we're running close to time now. I've seen a couple of comments where, and I won't mention the political party or where I've read the comments or seen the comments made. There are some political parties do seem to be more ready to oppose this than others. Put it that way. Members of the European Parliament representatives. Because possibly they oppose anything that comes out of Europe on principle. Now, I've seen a lot of people commenting that they're not going to talk to them. They're not going to write to their representatives to make their feelings known because they don't agree with that party's politics. And I'm not, just to be clear, I'm not talking about like the far right parties. I'm not talking about the BNP or anybody like that here, But, there are people who are quite happy to cut their nose off to spite their face here because they won't contact their MEP because they don't like their party politics. This is not a party political issue. This is actually much more important than any party political issue I've ever come across, to be honest with you.
It is.
If you're watching this show because you use electronic cigarettes or you want to. Therefore, my personal take on this is get over that. Nobody's asking you to vote for these guys, but they're what you've got. Use them.
Well, I think I'll chime in on that one if I may. I think a lot of people that know
if you're very, very quick,
right?
I'm getting the kicking
what
now.
Their politics are. My MEP holds diametrically opposed political views to me. And yet I was quite happy to sit down for 25 minutes with her and explain what we wanted. And she's very happy to represent that. Get over it. Just ask the question.
Tim, you get the last word if you're quick.
Yeah, well, I've done exactly the same. I didn't vote for half of them, but I've spoken to them all.
Brilliant.
Don't care
Good
about
on
their
you.
politics.
I'm going to go full screen. I'm going to say thank you to everybody for watching. It's time for us to go. We will keep you posted on any developments, any tips, tricks, or anything that's relevant to this on all of our Vapor Trails TV shows. Thank you for watching. Good night.